So we'll start with the gun issue. I don't know. As we know that last May we had the horrific shooting in Buffalo, and that's all we can say. It's a horrific shooting that was senseless, but in my opinion, the knee-jerk reaction was to enact legislation to restrict lawful gun owners to have their weapons. And so as we look at the gun laws that are out there now, and I have to say, pretty much everything I'm going to say tonight could change tomorrow, because it's flip-flopped several times. If I would have come here about a week and a half ago, I would have told you a lot of different things. But then a new court decision came out basically saying the law as enacted stands. For a while there it was put on hold or a stay, but now it's back in effect. So what the hardest part with this law is they have sensitive areas and restricted areas. Okay, so a sensitive area, and that's a whole list, and I'm not going to get them all down, but it's just about every place. Any government organization, schools, which I can understand those places, but bars or any place on-premise consumption of alcohol. I never thought I'd be saying this, but on-premise consumption of cannabis, those legislation. Most churches. So I know, Mel, I think you would ask me about churches a while ago. I know my church has a security team, and most of the guys were armed. And so, in effect, now nobody is permitted to carry a weapon in the church unless they are active military, law enforcement, or retired law enforcement from New York State, not from other states. So, we're living right on the border. Some of our churches, I'm guessing Mel's church probably has some people from Pennsylvania, whether they're law enforcement or not, they're not permitted to have the weapons in the church. There has been some rulings out there that will say, that have said, well, if you're security at the church, that's okay, but that's not in the law. And with all due respect, because somebody stands in front of a podium and says, that's not what the law meant, that was not our intention, until I see it written, I'm not going to base any opinion on that or take a risk of doing that.
What is the reason not to allow firearms in the church?
I have no idea. Okay, I mean, I can't begin. It does make it easy target. I mean, I understand saying, we have to be very careful saying, hey, we'll never enforce this. Because if somebody came in and shot up the church, I would want to use whatever laws I can to charge somebody with that. But what they've done is they've effectively, and I think I heard somebody over there, said makes the church a soft target.
Every one of those places is now a target.
Yeah.
Nobody in people's already illegal.
Go to a gun-free zone.
Yeah. You're not getting any disagreement from me on that. So I don't know what the logic was on that. Whether that was, I don't think it was real well thought out, to be honest with you. And I mentioned it from the beginning. I believe it was a knee-jerk reaction. And I say that in one aspect, it may have been very well thought out too. Take the first tragedy you have and start restricting, taking away our Second Amendment. So those are sensitive areas. And we could go on with that list. I think it's about 30 different places that are local. Well, let's see. It's 2.5 pages of places. So I could spend my 30 minutes talking about those areas. But those are areas that weapons are prohibited from being there. And then we have the restricted areas. And basically, that's any private property. Okay, so if I have some posters back there, the private property, whether it's a business or a residence, if you walked in my home, I'd have to either give you express consent to have a sidearm or have a sign on my window someplace saying that you're permitted to have them.
And I want to thank you. Your deputies delivered mine very quickly.
Good.
So it is on my door.
Okay. Well, and we've had some people complain about it, but I'm not personally, I'm not going door to door asking people if they want it. But when people ask if, for them, we're supplying those. And what that does, and there's controversy on that, because I think some business owners that have put them up worry, okay, now I put it up, now does that mean some of my other customers aren't going to come there? One of the businesses I won't mention, we had a really long discussion, and he opted to protect the customers that are carrying their weapons. And quite honestly, most people aren't going to know it. If you're carrying the way you're supposed to be carrying, concealed, you're not going to know whether somebody's have that weapon. But the store owners or the businesses, I don't know of any residents, to be honest with you, they have put them up. There could be some, but they're putting them there to protect the people that they're permitting to be in there. Now, the problem we have is, if that store maybe has no problem with somebody coming in there with a weapon, okay, as long as it's concealed and doing it properly. But if somebody, another customer in the store sees this, they could call and report it. Right now, because of the flux in court decisions and then stays and upper courts ruling against the lower courts, right now we're at a state of we're waiting to see what happens at the higher court and likely the Supreme Court. How does that affect? How many of you have pistol permits? Okay. How many of you are prepared to do 18 hours of classes before the next time you recertify?
Get them done before it expires.
Yeah. Well, the thing is you can recertify, but once that goes through and you have to, the next time you recertify, okay, if you're going to have to take that 18-hour course as it stands now. Maybe I should say that. As it stands now, it's 16-hour class and 2 hours of
It goes through the state police, we have to read. That's what you're talking about.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, you're supposed to do that. And it's going to change right now. Well, it has changed. It was 5 years before every 5 years you had to recertify. Now you're going to have to do it every 3 years. Unless...
And we're the legal ones.
I'm with you.
But when I got my permit many, many years ago, there's no expiration date on it. It was a lifetime permit.
Yeah, mine didn't
Yeah.
either.
And so this is right now, and with the SAFE Act, I believe, is when they enacted we have to recertify. And this was the difference, and there's some question on this. Recertify versus renew.
Right.
So you're right. There's, I think, 3 counties, maybe a handful. We'll just say, because I don't know for sure the number. A handful of counties in New York State, they have a renewal clause on their permits. So every 3-5 years, whatever that county does, they have to renew them. So they would have to take that 18-hour course.
So stupid.
Some people are saying recertify. We're a recertify county, okay, so we may not have to take that 18-hour course, but we don't know. We really don't know quite yet. I know our Judge Cass believes that we're a recertified state, or county, that we won't have to take the 18-hour course, but we won't know until everything shakes out in the court systems.
It's kind of irritating. You paid a lot of money, no matter when you got your permit.
Yep.
It was never cheap, and you bought a lifetime permit that expired.
Well,
and now it's like they sold you you bought a warranty.
yeah. Well, in New York State right now, with bail reform and a lot of the legislation we have out there is trying to see this equity in not really punish people that are indigent. Well, that's exactly what's happening with this permit process now, is people who, it's already expensive, like you said, to get a permit. That's with a 5-hour course. Now you're going to have to take an 18-hour course. We don't know what that's going to cost because that's going to be up to the individual instructors. But 18 hours is going to be a long time. That price is going to go up, plus the ammunition, to shoot, because you're going to have to shoot 2 hours. Well, not solid 2 hours, but 2 hours of shooting. So the cost is going to go up. Right now, we don't have a 16-hour course design.
I was going to say they don't know what's got to be in it.
Well, we do know what's got to be in it. Okay, they gave us 8 to 10 broad topics. De-escalation, use of force, safe storage. It has to be 2 hours on safe storage. I'm not sure how we're going to get 2 hours out of that, But there's a lot of things that are listed in that legislation, and we're working. The way I interpreted the law was we weren't even going to be able to do that until July of next year. However, so that basically put a stay. But honestly, we just got an invite from Erie County that they have a 16-hour course that they're offering. My question, Judge Cass and I have been talking. Does that mean we can develop our course? So we're getting our instructors together. We are also under the interpretation that the state, DCJS and New York State Police, we're going to have to design the course. What they've done is give us an outline. So now we're going to develop, when I say we, our pistol permit instructors, a couple officers are going to sit down and develop that 16-hour course to be taught to individuals out there.
And where are you going to get all these instructors? I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people with permits now, and if they have to be renewed and have to go through all these courses and that, to find people to...
I can tell you, just before the law went into effect, the pistol permit instructors we had in Chautauqua County, just one of them, and I think there's about probably 20, 25 instructors. I don't know the exact number, but just one of them had over 500 people signed up for a month.
I know who that is, but on the other hand, who is going to be with them for that 2 hours of shooting? You aren't going to allow people to be out shooting on their own without somebody certifying that they're doing it.
Oh yeah, you definitely have to have an instructor there.
Exactly.
So yes, it's a again.
The state police or somebody's going to have to, step up, because you're going to have one instructor, or, say you have all these instructors in here, they aren't going to be able to watch.
I do not foresee any law enforcement agency doing the instruction on that. That's going to be a liability. That's going to be manpower. Like you said, again, the manpower issues is, so we would have to take people off the road, off patrol to instruct. And that's not going to happen from the sheriff's office, unless the sheriff's deputies. Well, and to be honest, we have 2 sheriff's deputies who have started a business, so they will be doing, but that's on their own time. So.
Well, then it's going to be an issue for those of us that are going to have to wait until there's a slot open to have
and again, when I did say it was a knee-jerk reaction, it may have been a well-planned out knee-jerk reaction, if there's such a thing. This gave us an incident to react. So just like I said, that I thought that was not until July that we were even able to offer the course. I've been stand corrected on that, or interpretation of that is that we can start offering it, but we have to get the course developed in 16 hours.
16 hours. How did they come up with that number?
No, what was your question? What was the reasoning on the churches? How did they come up with 16 hours? I don't know. Now, some legal minds, I don't want to mention their names because I don't have their permission, but they feel a lot of this legislation will be overturned. But they do not think that the 16-hour will be overturned, because there's other states that already require courses like that. So it'd be hard to say, that will be overturned. So.
How about that new little thing they're showing on TV when you're shooting without bullets and aiming through your phone and all that?
No.
Why not?
Because the law specifically says live ammunition. So we thought we were going to be able to do that also. But yeah, we looked into that already. It's going to have to be a live fire shooting. So no. Question.
For training, I'm interested in developing a security force for my church so we can have someone packing there. Could you steer me to a source, or you mentioned your church was doing this? Could you point me to a resource?
Yes. The one that I've listened to, and he's been in this county several times instructing, a guy by the name of Steve Padden.
Yes.
Watchman's
Academy.
Yeah. What's it?
Watchman's Academy.
Okay, yeah, Watchman Academy. Steve's a retired Buffalo police officer. He runs the firearms training for Erie County Training Center for law enforcement. Great guy. I think when I get done, I think I can give you his phone number. I think I have it in my phone. Great. But he's a great contact. And Well, he also has one of those, well, I call a FATS trainer, but a simulated shooting that it's portable, so he can bring that. And he doesn't really, to be honest, he won't tell you whether you should have armed security at the church or not armed security. He just presents. That's going to be something that the church itself would have to decide whether they want to have armed security there or not. Now, I will say, and I've said this before this legislation, if you're going to carry, you need to practice. And you need to practice with it your weapon, the way you carry it. Because if I go out, even our officers, when they go out to the range and they shoot, we'll go to range in our casual clothes, dressed like this, and then 40 hours a week I'm wearing a uniform. Well, it's a little different than shooting in the, if I go shoot in sweatpants and then I'm wearing a uniform that doesn't fit me quite the way it should, like it's a little snug and it's hard to move, it affects. Or, if I carry my weapon, right here I'm carrying it, exposed because I'm working, but when I'm off duty, you don't know I have the gun. That's how I want to practice. So I have to practice both ways so I know where I'm going to be carrying that weapon, how I'm going to draw it. It's a little different when you're under pressure. And it's, I've never been in a shooting situation. I practice, but I still don't know how I'm going to react because I've never done that. I know we have some veterans in here. They probably have a better idea how that's going to happen and the stress you're going to be under that. But they say the heart rate goes up so much. I mean, and any time you go over 140 beats per minute, your near vision, it's almost impossible to focus on those front sights. So you have to, that's why you have to practice and try to simulate as much stress as you can. We make our officers run just to get the heart rate up and then shoot. But a lot of times what happens is we got people who get their permit, they shoot 10 rounds at the safety course, and that's the last time they shoot. In my opinion, they may not be the ones that should be carrying a weapon. Okay, I had somebody that I knew from my church that they said, I like it when you sit in my pew because if somebody comes in here shooting, I'm going to slide you my gun. It's like, why are you carrying it then? Okay? It's, I don't know if he was joking but he didn't laugh. Okay? But that's the mentality. And so we have to use common sense as well. I'm a believer that with every right we have, which I'm a strong believer in the Second Amendment, but with every right we have responsibilities. And our responsibility is to use the weapon right, know how to use it, when to use it appropriately, know when you can shoot, when you can't shoot, when you should draw it, when you shouldn't draw it. And then if you're going to draw it, you should know how to use it. And that means, and I don't get any kickback from the ammunition companies, but you should be shooting lots of rounds out in practice under different weather situations or wherever you're going to be carrying that. So the other thing with the permits, we had about 1,200 permits sent in the month of August. Well, the good news is next week they're starting to get processed. We have starting to get processed? Yes, because we are trying to get caught up with all the other ones. We're always behind. Sometimes it takes 5-6 months to get those permits. We're the last batch of the ones before August are going to see the judge, and then they're going to come over for my signature, so they should be in next week, for me to sign them, and then we got those nearly 1,200 that they're starting to process with them. Okay, now, and I say this is patience. The more phone calls and emails and stuff that go to Betty, the slower it goes because then she's got to answer them. But we have the semi-automatic rifle. You have to have a permit now if you want to buy a semi-automatic rifle. So anybody who has already got a pistol permit, they are grandfathered in. So if you want to get that endorsement and you go to the gun dealer, initially we were trying to we thought we could tell the gun dealers, listen, as long as they have a pistol permit, you can go ahead and sell it. But a lot of the gun dealers in this county were visited by some different agencies saying, if you sell that without the endorsement, then you're going to probably lose your license. So these dealers aren't. So what we're doing now is if you want to buy a semi-automatic rifle, contact the pistol permit office. They'll send you, the paper form with they put the weapons on. They'll put an endorsement on that, so you can get that. If you just you don't want to get a pistol permit, but you want to be able to buy a semi-automatic rifle, you have to fill out an application. It's the same application that you're going to have to fill out and submit just to get that semi-automatic rifle permit. So I guess you might as well do and then you won't have to take the 16-hour course for that. So that's why, yeah.
So it'll just be a separate piece of paper we carry in along with our permit.
Yes. And then the next time you get the card, it'll be on that too. But it will be on that piece of paper endorsement. So.
Does that semi-auto thing also carry over to shotguns?
Well, we don't know. Okay.
It doesn't specify.
Well, the way it's written, that's the problem. The way it's written, some attorneys I talk to interpret it is because it's not written that way, you can just buy, it's just for the rifles. Others say because it's not specified, it applies to any semi-automatic long gun.
Does the endorsement specify?
No, it's SAR. It says rifle, but when you look at the definition, so as we think of rifle, I mean, I'm thinking of, rifled barrel, but it doesn't necessarily, the way the law is written, it doesn't.
Made the laws that don't know.
Correct. Correct. Yes, sir.
There's got to be a lot of churches that do not have somebody that carries.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a recommended procedure in case someone enters with a firearm as to what the congregation can do?
So it's similar to schools. That continues to change. If they're coming in and you can get out of there, get out of there. Okay, so it used to be schools would lock down everything. Well, now we're saying, if you can get out, you get out. Okay, if you can't get out, then you hide. And if you can't hide, then you do whatever you can. You pick up those hymnals, you pick up the Bibles, you whatever, and start throwing them at. I mean, distract.
That's what we heard.
Yeah, I mean, so it all depends on the circumstance. So to say, hey, just do one specific thing, and this is where, again, no kickback from Steve Padden from the Watchman Academy, but he comes in and does some great security training for churches. It really focuses on things that churches can do to make the church safer, and and he doesn't say whether you should be armed or not armed. And what I've heard some people in churches say, well, we don't need to be armed because I'm ready to meet my maker. Well, let me just tell you something. Not everybody in the pews are ready to meet their maker. Okay? And I say that is from a Christian perspective. Not everybody comes to church as a believer in Jesus Christ. So we can't look at it that way. But I do think I'm a strong believer if you're going to. So my father taught me range safety and firearm safety from the time I was a little kid, and our church had a firearms training. This is years ago, training day, and the one that scared me most at the range was my father. So, because he got. I don't know what happened. It's like, Dad, what are you doing? But I think sometimes we get a little complacent. And that's my concern with the safety in the churches. I know what you're going to...
We got at max, 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay.
For that semi-auto endorsement, would it be best just to email Betty instead of jamming
Yeah.
the phone lines?
Yeah. Yes.
Are we going to be notified by county? Some of us have permits that are a couple years old, some of us have permits that are 30 years old. So how does that work?
If you have a permit that's 30 years old and you haven't recertified, you better recertify. Now, What I've been told is the state police is responsible for monitoring that, but I've also been told the state police doesn't have the manpower to monitor that. So,
A couple of years ago, we had to fill out a piece of paper.
yeah,
Fill out something.
and now everything's online.
There's a site.
Yeah, it's all online, and so it's up to you. Some people do get letters from the state police. I don't know how that happens, but I've seen a couple of those letters come out where people have received letters. One of our corrections officers received a letter, so I don't know how that how they determine who gets a letter, or if it's just like an automated system that gets sent out, so I don't know with that. Real quick, because Mel asked me to talk a little bit about the homeless situation in Jamestown. We've been seeing a lot of that. Mel asked a question at a meeting I was at a couple weeks ago. Are these people local people? Are they coming in? I can tell you, the meetings I've been at and the people we've talked to are U.S. citizens. Maybe I should say that. They're not locals. They're not, well, some of them are locals. But, we've had people from Buffalo. One night, I have some issues with ice cream. I like eating ice cream. My family was out of town, so I stopped at the 50s to have an ice cream cone. And there was a guy outside and asked me for a burger. And so, I'm always a believer, if somebody wants something, let's talk to them, let's have a conversation. I don't mind buying him a hamburger, but in our conversation, he was homeless. He'd come down from Buffalo. And, of course, my question is, why'd you come down from Buffalo? He followed a lady. I won't, I just kind of chuckled at that. And then he said, that didn't work out. I said, why not? Well, when her husband got out of jail, I said, well, there's a problem here. Okay, but he's also a heroin addict, and we're seeing a lot of that. And again, they're some from Pennsylvania, but again, we're right on the border, so that happens. Some from Buffalo, some from Cattaraugus County, some from Jamestown and in the surrounding area. On Columbus Day, we went out and had an outreach where we were trying to talk to some of the homeless and find out, what are your needs? What brought you to this point where you're homeless? And many of them, it's a drug addiction issue. And one gentleman, actually there was a table of about 8 or 9 homeless, I won't say, some male and female, and the majority of that table expressed their concern was, I thought, well, my thought is you're homeless because you can't find a job, and which that is part of it. But what one gentleman said, he says, I can find all kinds of jobs. I just can't keep them because of my addiction issue. Mm-hmm. The guys that I spoke to were very honest. The very first one we spoke to, we were walking the railroad track and talked to him. And I was probably 40, 50 yards away, dressed similarly to this with my jacket on, baseball cap on, and he turned and started walking away. It's like, and I said, hey bud, hold up. And he stopped. He knew I was a cop. I don't know how. I mean, I was 30, 40 yards away from him, dressed in black. But, we had a great talk. And, he just said when I asked, what is a need that you have? And his answer was to know that somebody cares about me. And, and I truly believe it was a sincere response. It wasn't just something that he was saying, because he wasn't getting anything from us at that point. And I say at that point because what we did is we invited everybody over to a chicken barbecue afterwards. 120 meals were served that day. Not 120 people. There was about 65 people. There were some volunteers that ate, and then some of them we sent with extra meals so they'd have them out there. But we need to be careful. Okay, I'm a firm believer that there's different stages of assistance for the homeless. There are sometimes we have to do the hand out to help them to survive at that moment, but not to rely on the handout. We also have to give them, a means to, a hand up to say, how can I help myself out there? But it's easy for us to say, this person needs this. What we need to do is talk to the homeless. So a lot of these meetings I've been at is nobody there has been homeless. And they're saying this is what they need. Well, sometimes they need the tough love. Sometimes they just need love. But
sometimes they don't want anything. We have a girl that comes and sleeps
in our church in the best, well, it's protected. So she's there, and I go there early, and so does our pastor. And lots of times she's there sleeping. And the other day I had to move her feet to get into the church. And I asked her, do you want some water? Do you want to come in to use the bathroom? She doesn't want a thing. But now when I was doing the sign, she waved and said, have a good day to me. And I said, same to you. I mean, so I don't know what she wants.
One of the things I encourage, I've encouraged a lot of people this, is take some time and go down to St. Susan's and have lunch. Okay, and I know some people will say, well, I don't need St. There's a donation box. If you feel guilty about taking a lunch, put some money in the donation. But sit at the tables, have lunch, and talk with some of the people. Not being judgmental, but find out their story. That's my favorite question is, can you tell me your story? And some people won't. And so I made a mistake many years ago. A friend of mine that belongs to NAMI, National Alliance for Mentally Ill, her son had been homeless. And we tried to help him, and same thing, he refused to help. And I said to her, I says, well, he's choosing not to get the help. And she politely let me know he's got a mental illness. So he's not, while he's telling you, I don't want help, is his mental illness interfering with his ability to get the help. So it's not a one size fits all. It's we got to take the time to talk with the individuals. What the city of Jamestown is doing is really a stopgap emergency measure right now. Okay, I think they're at least doing a stage, so they're going to have, well, I'm hoping soon, because I think that last meeting we were at, they said before Thanksgiving. And I got a call this weekend when I was in the woods hunting, and they didn't have any place to take some homeless people. I don't know why they called me, but it's, so two places, the Gateway Center, or the Mental Health Association down at the Gateway Center in
Joy Fellowship.
Joy Fellowship. I knew where the church was, but they changed the name probably years ago, but it used to be the Free Methodist Church. But on 7th or 8th Street?
I think it's 7th.
7th. So those are the two places. One's going to be for families, that's Joy Fellowship, and then the Mental Health Association will be for singles, individuals. So, sorry, I went over.
That's right. No.
That's their question.
4 minutes.
Oh, 4 minutes.
You see a lot of different things that we don't see as citizens. How do you stay focused?
How do I stay focused?
Yeah, how do you stay focused? 'Cause I can see, I mean, you can get, people, I mean, these homeless people, they're overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
They're checking out. How do you stay focused? Because you're human. They're human.
Well, honestly, I have it's almost like a comic poster that's in my home office. I call it an office. It's really a closet, but it's I can sit and do work, and I have a poster, and it has the armor of God, and I look at that every day before I go to work. On my desk, I have a coin that has the armor of God, and I rely on that. I know actually it gives me goosebumps because right when I first took office, I had a bivocational pastor stop in early in the morning. On his way home, he worked his secular job overnight, and he stopped and asked, how can his church pray for us? And just knowing that we have, I always knew I had people praying for me when I was on patrol, friends and family, but to know that churches are praying, and we need to be praying for our political leaders, in realizing that I believe that God allows those leaders, even the leaders we don't like, but we need to be praying for them, and that's, I think that's scriptural. So, and quite honestly, I have a family. I come from a law enforcement background. My family keeps me grounded and keeps me focused, and they're not afraid to let me know when I'm not seeming focused. We have an open policy at our work that we can call out each other. It doesn't matter what rank. If we're doing something wrong, I don't care if it's fresh, not little, but brand new deputy coming onto the job, 3 months on the job. If I'm doing something that's inappropriate or wrong, we've got duty to intervene. That they can tell me, hey, sheriff. I mean, we actually even taught the ways to do that. Okay, to intervene when somebody's using excessive force or just getting out of control with that. So that's a long answer to a short question.
Has the bail reform laws made it harder for you to help some of these people that are addicted?
Absolutely. So I felt we needed bail reform. Not to the extent that they went. And what we're seeing in our jail, the people who are coming in our jail are sicker than they ever have been, both mentally, with their mental illness, and their physical health. Because many of the people that used to come to the jail, when we would, our counselors or our medical staff would ask, who's your primary care physician? They would say, Miss Snow, who was our jail physician. Or who's your mental health counselor? And they'd say, Miss Tammy. Who's our jail? They don't see anybody on the outside. So while they're cycling in and out of the jail, at least they were getting some help in the jail. I tell people the most difficult part of my job that I never thought I was going to have to do is running a medical clinic in our jail and running a kitchen. The police part of it is relatively simple. But I think it's harder to get help, and it's sometimes we could at least hold that over there. Somebody's head is like, you go get some counseling, and then but there's no accountability right now. There was a guy that was just arrested Friday night, city of Jamestown. He was in a business foyer. 2 days before that, he was in, when my secretary came into work, she turned on her screen. We have cameras out in the hallway, and this guy was sleeping in our foyer. So, so he's going around, and so we're seeing that. And I have a good friend of mine who's been in a little bit of legal trouble, and he was complaining to me because we wouldn't take him to jail. He says, Jim, I've committed a crime, and you guys we can't take you to jail anymore. And he was serious. Because that was a place, especially when the weather's, safe. It was a safe place for him. And that doesn't happen a lot, that people wanting to get arrested to go to jail, there's a handful that will do that. But I think it's definitely made things more difficult and more difficult to get help for the individual. Sometimes jail, I'm not always a believer that jail is the best place for people, but sometimes that is the place where they're going to get help because there's no place else to get it. So,
all right.
Thank you, Bill.
Hey, thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
With us here this evening.